Welcome back to the second in our series of videos where we rate all 373 of Coronation Street's regular characters over the years using Corriepedia's Ultimate Character Survey. You can find out more about that in the link below. And while you're down there, if you'd like to give us a like or a subscribe, well, that would be just lovely. Today, we're going back to the 1960s where it all began. Coronation Street may have been filmed in black and white back then, but the characters were plenty colourful, with big names such as Ina Sharples, Elsie Tanner and the Ogdens going down as telly legends. So sit back, enjoy, and feel free to shout at the screen whenever you disagree with us. It's the second part of the Ultimate Coronation Street Character Survey. Okay, we're back for the 60s, which is something that probably 6 months ago we probably wouldn't have been able to have done a particularly good job on. We were not particularly experts at this, were we?
No, but now we are absolutely experts.
We know
anything and everything to do.
We've seen 80 episodes from the 60s.
Yeah, but I think
the DVDs
you don't need to have seen. I think many episodes of the 60s to know that you should really be giving Annie Walker 5.
Oh, absolutely.
Annie Walker gets 5.
Queen of the Street, the original Queen.
Now, I love
Fantastic.
Jack Walker, but he was only in it for 10 years because, unfortunately, Arthur Leslie passed away in 1970, very unexpectedly.
He was lovely, though, wasn't he,
I absolutely
character?
loved Jack.
I want him as
thought
my
he was
granddad.
great.
4?
I wish I could give him a 5.
Yeah. I reckon that if he'd have stayed in it as long as Annie, he had the potential to be up
He
there,
was
but
fabulous.
his time was
He was
sadly
so
cut
great.
short.
Albert Tatlock.
He's a character that is widely recognised as a Corrie icon, but from what we've seen, I don't think he's necessarily stood out as a particular favourite of ours. He's been
No.
fine, but
I
I'd
think
almost not say much more than fine.
I give him a 4 because
Yeah.
he's a very unique character, really well-rounded, really played well by Jack Howarth, but can't say that I thought I fell in love with the character of Albert Tatlock.
No, I agree. Frank, another...
He wasn't in it for a great amount of time. I thought he was...
I thought he was fine.
Really enjoyed watching him, actually.
I found it interesting just seeing, so what was Ken's dad like then?
I
Because you always
liked-
imagine Ken as being this old man. But yes, he did have parents. He was spawned from them. Oh, we got Ida Barlow next
He
as well,
was
so
like- he
two birds
was-
and one stone.
I thought the relationship between Frank and Ken was really interesting, and it resonated as well a little bit with me because I think a lot of people would put me as a middle class person. I think my dad would class himself as a working class person, and I did feel a tiny, I don't think it wasn't as overt as Frank, but I always feel a tiny bit of tension. I think a lot of people can relate to this between my upbringing and perhaps my current status or my aspirations, and I really enjoyed the tension there, so I give him a 3.
Frank thought that Ken was a bit of a snob sometimes.
thought he
didn't he?
was-
He thought
yeah.
he had ideas above his station.
Exactly.
Did you 3? Did you say for him?
He left the show quite early on.
Did he
I
win the
thought it was
pools or something like that, and then go off and buy a shop somewhere?
good. Now I would call Ida a minor character.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 2 for her. We've only seen such a small handful of episodes with Ida in, and she didn't particularly stand out as being, awful or awesome. But her death episode, we did both
Her death
really
episode,
enjoy.
I would rank as one of the best episodes of Coronation Street.
It was not a murder mystery, it was a mystery, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of my favourite I've ever seen episodes of Coronation Street.
That is high praise.
2. I give her a 2.
Yeah.
And I give David, I don't know, he's a 1.5. I didn't mind him.
I liked
His
him.
romance with Irma was sweet. That brought him out.
That really brought him up. I would have gone for I might even say a 3 for David
No,
Barlow
I'll
for
give
me
him a 2.
personally, particularly because of that romance with Irma.
Esther
Esther
Hayes
Hayes.
gets a 1 because
Sorry, Esther.
she just kept turning up and I didn't know why.
From the first 7 episodes that we watched in 1960, she was one that stood out for not standing out. She was just dull, wasn't she?
She was okay.
She didn't have
was
anything
just
going for her.
a standard lady, wasn't she? Harry
Yeah.
Hewitt, I really liked him. He had a very tragic ending.
He bought it.
He did. He was played really well. Oh man, it's got to be. I think I'll give him a 3.
Yeah, he was a solid guy. He's a bit of a...
He was a dependable bloke.
Yeah.
He was a decent chap.
Yeah, apart from, sending his daughter off to an orphanage just
What
because
is a
her mum
man
had died.
supposed to do when he's asked to look after a small child? Has to send her off to an orphanage. I really like this though.
I did as well. I grew to like her. Man, she irritated me
like
in the
her.
early 60s.
She was an 11-year-old being played by a 16-year-old, and you kept saying, she looks like she's 30.
She really grew into the role, and it's a real shame that Jennifer Moss had to
Moss's
leave because of
personal
her.
problems led to her being sacked quite with short notice. She basically filmed a scene and got sacked.
I honestly think that she could have stood the test of time. She could have still been in it, for many years to come.
She really could have
had
been
she not had
in
those
it now.
personal problems.
I think a 4.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
wow.
Lucille Hewitt. She was one of the
Might have
first.
gone for a 3.
She was the first child star of British television. Sacha Riley, the name alone gives her a higher mark than she probably deserves. But
I'm thinking 3 for Concetta. She doesn't stand out as being...
She was the first barmaid in the Rovers.
Yeah.
She was one of the very few Irish characters we've ever had.
Love her accent, love her name, just didn't particularly enjoy much about her stories.
No. She was, give her a 3. I do like Concepta. I think she's a nice lady.
Yeah.
Elsie Tanner, 5 out of 5.
Say no more.
Yeah.
What
Pat Phoenix, legend. Elsie Tanner, legend.
We'd heard a lot about her before we started watching these old episodes, and we can tell from watching them exactly why she deserves all the praise that she's getting.
I would give Dennis Tanner a 5.
Would you?
Yes, I would.
I don't know whether I would.
I would. How many other characters have come back after so long, and whether you liked his storylines or not, I think that he had a massive place in the street. He was in both stints, and I enjoyed him so much in his early years.
He was just in it so little, wasn't he? He left in 68, I think, and then didn't come back till when?
5 out of 5.
11 or so. Oh.
Dennis Tanner, 5 out of 5.
He was great, just sadly underused, and what a tragic exit for his character.
I loved Linda. She was great. I think Anne Cunningham was beautiful.
Didn't see much of her.
Didn't see a lot
of the
of
DVD
her.
episodes. I'd be going between a 2 and a 3 here.
I think she deserves a 2, but I'm going to give her a 3 because I have a soft spot for her, and you have to go with your heart, don't you? Ivan, 1. He was in it very little, and I'm not bothered. I would
have gone for a 2 for Ivan. From what little I saw of him, I thought he was a decent chap. We just saw very, very little of him.
Christine Hardman, I thought she really made an impact on me.
That story at the beginning when her mum died in the first
and
couple
also
of weeks
when she was sitting on the roof and Ken had to come up and talk to her, and she was trying to decide what to do in her life. I think a lot of people have had moments, not necessarily as dramatic as that, but where they are left at crossroads and they don't know what to do. I'll give her a 3.
As well that went out with Frank Barlow for a little bit as well.
Yeah, she did. She was going to marry him and then she changed her mind.
Yeah.
Florrie Lindley, I did like Florrie. She was a bit boring, but I'll give her a 2.
2. She didn't, from what we've seen.
I liked Florrie. I would love her to work in the corner shop up the road. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ina Sharples, 5 out of 5.
Absolutely.
No more questions.
Yeah.
Oh, Margot. I'll give Minnie Caldwell 5.
Would you?
Yeah, I would.
Whoa.
I would, because I think that her double act with Ina and her little put downs. Oh no, I love her. 5. Martha, and sadly was cut down in her prime.
She really was. People always think of Ina, Martha, and Minnie there in the snug, but she was only in it 4 years maybe until she died.
Yeah, I'll give her a 4. I thought she was great.
Yeah, I would probably have gone for a 3 with her.
Don't care. Leonard Swinley, he was such a big part of those early years.
He was
such
a
an
real
imposing character, and he was so charismatic
awesome
as well.
Double act with Emily.
Arthur Lowe, one of the best of his generation TV actors in the UK. I'll give him a 4. I know that's really high, but don't forget that they had such faith in the character that they did a spin-off series, and Arthur Lowe has gone down in television history.
Indeed. Alpha. So you've not seen a whole lot of him, have you? Because he died before you started watching it.
Yeah.
So and in the 60s and 70s DVDs, he's had such a minor role, especially in the 60s. I mean, he first made his debut on Corrie in, I'm going to say 61 maybe, but you wouldn't know it, would you, from what the episodes that we've watched, because he was such a minor,
I would class him
character
along the lines of Orion, in that he just is there. And he doesn't really do much.
He doesn't, but at the 80s and 90s were his golden era, and
I didn't watch
those are the ones that you haven't seen.
If I had seen it, I might give him higher, but I have to give him a 3.
Can't we give him a 4 because
No.
there's going to be some characters?
No, this is for my score.
Oh,
What do you think? Go on, explain.
Well, there's just going to be some characters that are coming up, particularly ones that are in the 80s and 90s, that we're going to have to score based on what I say because you know so little about them. And I think
No, but you've done your scores. This is mine.
This is our score.
No, this is my score.
Okay, then. Go on,
it's
then.
not fair. It's not fair to rate people.
Fine, fair dues. What do you want to do when we get to the characters that you literally know nothing of? Just skip over them.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now, Emily Bishop was a comedy character. She probably did something funny like once or twice a year, but when she did it, she was the best.
Back in the 60s, we're talking here, and 70s.
Oh, I'd give her a 4.
She is a bit of an icon, isn't she?
She is.
She stood the test of time.
Oh, Ernest Bishop is 2.5 for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I actually didn't like him towards the end because he was such an insufferable...
He's so preachy, the lay preacher of Weatherfield.
They tried to use him to teach people about social issues, and I just thought, yeah, we know.
Did they know back in the 70s?
Give him a 2. Got shot in the face.
Didn't get to see where he was shot, actually, did we?
It wasn't me. Oh, now Val. I loved Val. You didn't like her.
I didn't like her to start with, and then I grew to like her. I thought she had a lovely relationship with Ken in the end. I thought that her exit was a bit of a damp squib, to be honest.
I loved Val. I really, really, really cherished Val. Anne Reid, again, another stalwart of British television.
Beloved, still going strong.
She was in Years and Years. If you've seen that recently, she was the sort of the matriarch of the clan.
One of my favourite moments with Val from the early days was when she was taken hostage up in the Maisonettes.
She's got such an easy charm about her. She really is I know she was never the besto mum, but she could have been.
Yeah.
I would give her a 4. Val was one of my favourite characters.
That is strong. I'd have gone for 3 for her.
I don't remember Susan at all.
No, so this is one of Ken's kids who we've seen snippets of in the 60s and maybe 70s DVDs. I can't remember. Oh no, sorry, they were born in the 70s, weren't they? So we saw a little bit of them then.
This
is Peter's sister, and she comes back and forth in it over the years.
1.
After the 80s.
1.
One for you?
Yeah, 1.
Do I not get any? Oh, because
you don't get any input. You scored her already. What did you score her?
I'd probably 2.
You can say what you scored her, but it's my thing.
Janet.
1. I hated her.
I agree.
She's so boring.
She had an awesome scene with Elsie after Elsie had found out that she'd been having it off with.
I tell you what,
Alan.
her Elsie confronting Janet was one of the best ever reactions to an affair I've ever seen, because Elsie marched her into the Rovers and said, "We're going to show everybody what I think of you." She went in there, she bought Janet a drink, and then she said, go, now you leave. And I thought that was one of the coolest and classiest ways to deal with somebody who was...
Yeah, and then she came back, married Ken, went off again.
Boring.
Suicide. It's just nothing.
Well, I know, I'm not going to criticise somebody for their demise, but, you know. Len...
I like Len a whole lot more than I thought I would. Before I started watching these old episodes, I thought, don't like him. I don't like these, tough guy builder kind of people. But actually, he seemed like he's a really reliable, decent, solid chap.
Peter Adamson also had such a resonant and kind of theatrical delivery of Len's lines.
And
that
relationship with Elsie as well.
Him and Elsie, and also he married Rita.
Yeah, whereas I would still say that the relationship between Len and Len and Elsie was more compelling than Len
I agree
and Rita.
with you.
So far from what we've seen on the DVDs.
But do you know what what would you would give him a 4, wouldn't you?
I don't know whether I'd say 4 or 3. Probably 3.
I'm going to give him a 5. I think he's iconic. I think
that is
Coronation
high praise
Street
indeed.
can often... See, to me, you said you would give Roy a 5, didn't you?
Yeah.
Now, I think that Len Fairclough is a more iconic character than Roy.
I don't know whether I'd agree with that.
I'm scoring it.
Billy Walker. We're on to 100 now, Gemma.
Billy Walker was Annie Walker's son, and he kind of flitted in and out.
He seems a bit of a ne'er-do, a bit sleazy,
He
a
was
bit
kind
shifty.
of a proto Terry Duckworth, but not quite as evil.
No, yeah, not
and
so
self-serving.
obviously nasty and villainous.
3, I give Billy.
That's generous for Billy. He doesn't float my boat at all.
Doreen Lostock, we kept having to look her up.
Lostock. We did learn how to pronounce the
1.
character's name that we were saying. Yeah.
She had amazing hair, but you don't get points for hair. Sheila Battles has not made an impression on me, I'm afraid.
No, she had the suicide attempt, didn't she? Although they rewrote.
She came back, and now isn't she friends with Gail? Or am I
No, you're thinking of Susie.
Yeah, well, I'll give her 1 then.
She is. She wasn't. From what we've seen in the 60s and 70s, yeah.
Now, Jerry Booth,
unmemorable,
played by Graham Haberfield, is another one of these tragic stories, the same with Lucille and the same with Jack Walker, where the actor was cut down in their prime or taken away from the show for personal reasons. You know, Graham Haberfield died of a stroke.
And also,
very young.
The same with Jack Walker and Lucille Hewitt, characters that we didn't really know that much about before we watched the DVDs.
Completely.
It totally won us over. I was not ready to like Jerry.
No, I had no idea who Jerry was. I didn't really care.
We'd been told he was a nice guy, but it's like, we can prove it, and
Tyrone,
he did.
if you like Tyrone, you will love Jerry Booth. Jerry Booth, I think, is the original Tyrone. He's, to me...
Ashley Peacock.
He's more likeable, he is sweet, he's mild-mannered, he's meek, but he stands up for himself, he knows what's right. He has his own storyline. He had this troubled past with his wife.
The relationship with Mavis was so sweet. That episode where him and Mavis go to the Italian restaurant and they don't know what anything on the menu is because they're only in the 70s.
I loved them. I give him a 4. I loved Jerry Booth.
Fine, that's fair enough.
Myra Booth, she gets a 1 because she's the one that did it. She's mean.
What did she even do? She spent some money on catalogues or something, didn't she? I don't know.
Well, they broke up, and that's the main thing. And she looks like she's wearing a bad mop on her head.
She does, doesn't she?
Jed Stone was fun. He came back. He got shoved in a basket
by Tony Gordon back in the 2000s. But originally, he was a bit like Dennis Tanner. Had a huge break from the show and then came back as a blast from the past. But I've not enjoyed watching him in the old episodes.
I thought he was great.
I didn't.
I enjoyed him. I felt like he was. I thought that what they did with who's the guy who brought the fruit machine round?
Eddie.
He's like Eddie, what they wanted Eddie Yates to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if he hadn't left the show, then he would have turned into Eddie Yates.
Maybe.
Eddie Yates was more charismatic than Jed Stone.
Yeah.
And much more fun and engaging. I thought he was cheeky and fun, and I give him a 3.
See, I would go lower for Jed Stone. I was expecting to like him, but there's just something that didn't quite grab me. The relationship with Minnie Caldwell was nice, with him calling her Ma.
I know, I really like everybody, and she collected so many wastes and strays. 1, don't know who that is.
Yeah, he's been in a handful of episodes that we've seen, but I remember not being that impressed by him. Don't even need to ask. 5 for Hilda.
And I give the same to Stan as well, because
they are such a double act. I'm really glad that you've taken them on board and loved them just as much as everyone else does. When it's an Ogden episode that comes up on the DVDs, you know you're going to be in for a good time. It just breaks your heart
how they never get a break,
I know.
do they? Irma, love Irma, one of my favourite female characters of all time. She was not in it long enough to get a 5, but I'd give her a 4
I'd give her a solid 4 for her, definitely. Lionel Petty, we probably only saw in a couple of episodes. He took over the corner shop for a little bit and he ran it like it was...
military operation.
Yeah, exactly. He was an ex-army sergeant or captain or something like this, and no, he didn't go down very well with the residents of the street because of that.
No, this was quite near the war, so he would have fought in World War II. I'll give him a 4.
2-1.
No, sorry. 2 or 3.
I can't say he's worth a 3. I don't think he's not.
Yeah, 2. You're right.
And Sandra Petty, his daughter.
Don't know who that is. Can't remember.
She went out with. Didn't she go out with Dennis for a little bit, or confusing her with someone else? But hasn't stood the test of time, sadly.
Now, Bette Lynch. This is going to be a controversial one because
you can't give her anything other than 5, Gemma.
I can, because the 80s and the 90s were Bette's heyday.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it.
Yes. Right, well, it's 4 then?
I don't want to give her a 4 because I know that she deserves a 5, but I can't say that I've seen her.
Having watched a lot of her 80s and 90s episodes,
one thing I will
there's not
say,
a shadow of doubt in my mind that 5 is what she deserves.
One thing I will say is that I definitely did say about Bette that she, more than anybody I've ever seen on Coronation Street, has an arc. Not many people have a character arc in Coronation Street that lasts a span of a decade or more.
No,
because they just don't do that kind of storytelling.
she just came in as a bit of a floozy in it.
She was like Lucille. She was a young hot thing. She was older than Lucille, obviously, but she was a sort of a dolly bird who just loved men. Then she was treated so badly by a series of men, she became disillusioned and cynical, and now
suicide attempts with her as well, wasn't there?
Oh, I'll give her a 5 then.
So good as the Rovers landlady. Honestly, she's amazing.
Okay, well this isn't really fair, but I'll give her a 5.
Langton, we've just seen him leave on the DVD, haven't we? I didn't think I'd like him, and I didn't.
I liked Ray.
I did. Ray
and Len, I really enjoyed watching them together. I know that you don't think that he deserved a 5. I can't give Ray a 5. I'll give him a 4.
See, he'd probably be 2 for me. He just
really.
Yeah, I can't think of any like Ray moments that I liked. Any Ray lines that have amused me. I was glad that Deirdre kicked him out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh. Now, poor Steve Tanner was murdered.
I'm surprised he's down this list, to be honest. He was in it for so little time.
I really enjoyed the fact that he was a GI.
He was a really nice chap, but they gave him a character assassination after they married him off to Elsie, because they then moved off to America together.
Went away.
And apparently he then treated her badly.
He just didn't pay any attention to her.
Yeah, and then he comes back and he gets killed off. But he seemed to be a nice guy and somebody who I could imagine had, I guess the actor wanted to star. I don't know what the background of it is, or they could have made a great couple.
He wanted to be in the UK. I don't know what the actor did.
True.
I think he's Coronation Street's answer to Captain America. I have to give him I'll give him a 3 because I really liked him, and I thought tell you what, that was like a beautiful romance for Coronation Street. Elsie, after having been accused of being a good time girl and a frivolous lady who sort of sold her affections to the GIs for gravy powder down, and tights or whatever, then to have actually married her wartime sweetheart and gone to America to live with him. If only Pat Phoenix had not been such an amazing actress and the character of Elsie Tanner not been so popular, perhaps they could have left that, and drawn a line under it and said that's the ending. And that to me would have been one of Coronation Street's greatest romance stories ever. But sadly they came back and then he got murdered and pushed down the stairs by Joe Donnelly.
But that was a fantastic story. Absolutely brilliant.
Alan Howard, now
on to her next husband.
Alan Browning in real life was actually Pat Phoenix's husband.
He married her after a few years of being in the show, I think.
And Alan was a weird character because he felt like an intellectual, and he had a kind of imposing presence and a big. He had like really like a kind of Brian Blessed almost feel, like a massive, big intellectual powerhousey kind of presence. But then
a lot of it was put on because he was a businessman and he had to keep up appearances.
He was blustering and he had, but then he sort of like worked in a factory. And he was the head of the factory, but I always felt like he felt a bit like Alan Sugary. Like, why are you really should be owning every single coal mine in the northwest.
Well, he had to sell off a load of his stuff because it turned out he owed people money, so he had to sell off all his bits and bobs, and that was why they kept
him and
Elsie on the street.
He was never a big.
I didn't
big enough for Elsie.
He. I'm not fussed by Alan. I don't know why she married him. I didn't think he worked. I would go for a 2 or a 1 for him. What do you reckon?
Give him a 2 then.
Yeah.
I think he was a 3, 2.5. Audrey 1, Dickie 1. Hated both of these.
What a mistake those characters.
Dickie and Audrey Fleming came in like they thought they were the Romeo and Juliet of Manchester.
They didn't last long, did they? A year or so. Yeah, we've only seen 2-3 episodes probably with them in, and maybe if you'd seen them for longer, you'd have got more affection for them, but we haven't.
I didn't care about anything to do with that.
Same with Effie Spicer.
I thought Effie Spicer would be a bigger deal than she was, but she lived in a Sharple.
Yeah, she lived in the Maisonettes, didn't she? She was like a rival battle axe, but
2, 1.
1 for Effie Spicer.
Sorry,
fair
Effie.
dues.
I love your name.
I know. Yeah. As we saw with Concetta Riley, that don't count for nout.
Maggie Clegg.
She's one that I'd like to have liked more than I actually did. She seemed nice, but just nice.
She's just a nice matronly woman who works in the corner shop.
She was just overshadowed when her sister Betty came along, sadly.
That is true. Yeah, I thought I had a sort of like a space in my heart for Maggie. And then Betty comes in and she just like
Blows it out of the
crapped
water.
all over her and made her look like a load of crap. Because Maggie Clegg didn't really have a presence, whereas Betty immediately commanded your attention in any scene, and you kind of forgot that Maggie Clegg was there.
Yeah. So 2 or 3 for Maggie. 2
I
for
really
Maggie.
wish I could give
It's
her
a real
higher.
shame, yeah.
She went earlier than I thought she would.
Gordon, we've not seen
rubbish.
a whole lot of. But
Betty. Now, I think I might give her a 5.
we're on to the 4s or the 5 territory for Betty. You kind of got to. She's
Because
in the show so
I
long.
didn't
all-time
realise how
classic.
great she was when you first came into it.
Yeah, you saw the tail end of Betty, I suppose, didn't you? The final 10 years of her life when, you know, she was
more
getting on a
sedate.
bit.
I love
She's
the
just
fact
grumpy,
that
wasn't
she's like-
she, in her
she's-
elderly years?
I love the fact that she's a darts champion in an era in which women were equal to men in a sort of like, you can do what you like, but you'll never be as good as men are. She kept beating men at darts, and I know that darts are one of the few games in which men and women can compete on an equal footing, and recently the world champion of darts was a girl. So I love the fact that she was like a trailblazer, but she never was smug about it, and she never really sort of, and she also didn't have an ego about it either, because she let someone else win so that she could get some money or get, you know, she was just kind of humble.
She had a great sense of humour. She was a lot of fun.
She was, there was no ego with Betty, but she was so great.
She had a hot pot. She's still there now on the walls.
We've never seen her make a hot pot, or it has not been mentioned.
It has not been mentioned yet.
It's just like eating pies.
On the DVDs. So 5. 5, icon. Cyril Turpin, only seen him a little bit, and he was still alive off screen for like 2 or 3 years before they killed off Cyril, wasn't he? 2? That's generous.
Yeah,
and then
but
we
he
have
was interesting.
Last couple of the 60s. Sorry, these 2 were Elsie's nephew and nieces.
Nibblings.
Yeah,
ones
didn't leave any kind of impression on me.
No.
Like what's the point of these characters? And with that, we've reached the end of the 60s. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week as Corrie enters the colourful world of the 1970s. And in the meantime, if you haven't seen any of the Coronation Street episodes from the 1960s, I really do recommend picking up this DVD. It's got 80 of Corrie's best episodes from its debut decade on it. Really is jolly, jolly good. If you want to hear us talking more about Corrie in the 1960s, then have a listen to some of our discussions on the podcast. But until next time, ta-ra for now.